Hey everyone, again, Lafayette Crump here, Commissioner of City Development for the City of Milwaukee, and welcome to the Growing MKE Project Kickoff. Um, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this exciting discussion of, a generational and transformative effort to encourage housing choice and growth through Milwaukee's zoning code. So Growing MKE, an effort to amend the citywide policy plan, we'll look at how to reduce barriers to development to help foster opportunity, prosperity, and equity for all Milwaukeeans by expanding housing choice in our city, tackling issues like ownership disparity and prohibitive zoning codes. There's so many desirable and affordable housing types that are currently not permitted throughout much or all of our city, or require truly burdensome and ultimately discouraging levels of review. These include things like townhomes or in-law cottages, or even in a lot of cases, more than 2-unit housing in over 70% of the city. Growing MKE will also allow us to set clearer expectations for development and to allow for greater diversity in the development sector. It'll also make more housing types feasible within neighborhoods so that people can age in place and not be forcibly displaced due to economic and zoning barriers. We anticipate that Growing MKE will also allow for additional housing development on high-frequency transit corridors to meet our climate goals. It's an exciting opportunity, and we're happy to share with you and answer any immediate questions that you may have this evening, as well as many throughout the process. So again, welcome to you all, and Amy, back to you.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Crump. All right, thank you, everyone. And again, we do have ASL interpretation and translators available. So quickly, just the agenda for this evening, we will be doing a 20 to 25-minute presentation, just kind of giving an introduction to the project, to let you know kind of what to expect going forward. But then, and there'll be many ways to engage over the next few months, and we will be posting this video afterwards as well. So following the presentation, we'll have a time for question and answer. So feel free to, again, enter those questions into the chat as we go. So overall, what is Growing MKE? It's an amendment to the citywide policy plan. Some of you might not be familiar with it, but we'll talk a little bit more about it later on. It'll be a set of policies and actions related to encouraging housing choice and growth through Milwaukee's zoning code. The actions will recommend strategic updates to the zoning code related to housing development. And that's the first phase of the project that we'll be talking about over the next few months. Then during a second phase, there'll be zoning code updates drafted and then presented to Common Council for adoption into the code. So, okay, so what does that all mean? Now I'm going to hand it over to Tanya to kind of give an overview of zoning and kind of how we got to where we are and why we're looking to change it and update the plan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Fonseca, and I'm the Long Range Planning Manager, and I'm going to walk us through some zoning and housing and how our regulations impact housing choice and growth. Next slide, Amy, please. And next slide, thanks. So cities, towns, and villages have been built in similar ways for centuries without zoning. So we're going to get into what zoning is here. Patterns of development evolved organically to meet basic needs. And we mixed it up. Different types of housing serve different budgets and different stages of life. And there was a place for everyone. There's options for upsizing, downsizing, just starting out, divorced or widowed, and there were spaces for students, artists, and all workers. There are also shops, services, and other small businesses located nearby within walkable distance from all these homes. And these diverse neighborhoods are really business friendly. More customers with varied interests in close proximity means increased opportunities for everyone, businesses and residents. And it all worked because everything was built at a compatible scale and intensity. And this compatibility allowed for a diverse mix of housing that encouraged a diverse mix of neighbors. So as you see here, we kind of have a full spectrum from single family homes all the way to mid-rise office or residential over retail, and then everything in between. So duplexes, triplexes, courtyard apartments, cottage courts, townhomes, multiplexes, and then live workspaces. So what happened? The growth of industry brought factories and other noxious uses to our urban landscape. And suddenly we needed rules to protect residents from these negative impacts. Rules making sure that incompatible uses were kept apart. So the logical response was to create zones grouping like uses together. And so here's an example of Milwaukee's zoning code map. And what you see, that big green shape, is Washington Park on the city's west side. This encouraged the development of similar homes in similar sizes at similar price points. And those with different budgets and needs were no longer accommodated as easily. And shop services and other amenities were no longer within walking distance in these new neighborhoods. And now more people need cars, further reducing income available for housing. Historic housing types serving a diverse population are no longer allowed in many areas. And so right now you're kind of seeing that big red zone of a lot of housing types that we do have in Milwaukee, but aren't as easy to build anymore. Making our neighborhoods increasingly similar and our housing choices increasingly limited. In our city, as Commissioner Crump mentioned, 70% of residentially zoned land is zoned for only single family or duplex housing. So what can we do? Well, we created our zoning code and we can change it if we choose. And we have updated it throughout history, and we want to do that now because zoning codes are meant to be living, breathing documents. And we really want to ensure, as we're working on this update for residential zoning, that we're thinking about opportunity, equity, and prosperity for all. And with that, I will turn things back over to Amy. Sam, excuse me. I'm sorry, Sam.
Well, thank you. And it's great to get to talk to people who chose to talk on a weeknight about these issues of how do we grow the city that we want to be? What does that look like as far as the housing choices in our city? And how do we get there? So thank you again to everyone for joining. You've heard a little bit about the history of zoning and how it affects our neighborhoods and our housing choices. And now we want to talk a little bit more about how that plays out locally. On the next slide, you'll see that the good news is we're not starting from scratch. Many of you, I recognize, a lot of the names as they popped in, have been involved with all sorts of neighborhood planning efforts over the years that our department has led. So we know what we've heard from so many neighborhood plans over the years that have been memorialized through our city's comprehensive plan, our area plans, our citywide policy plan. We know that time and time again, people have told us they want neighborhoods that are walkable. They want to be able to walk to parks and shops. They want to be able to meet their shopping needs in their own neighborhood without having to drive across the city to meet basic needs. And they want a wider range of housing choices. And that can mean housing that lets you stay and age in place, housing that adapts to all cycles of life and family sizes. And we've heard that across almost every neighborhood in the city. And you see that in many of our neighborhood plans. And those are the documents that we want to use as a foundation for this process as well, is talking about how do we reinforce those goals and put them into action. We've done a lot of other recent planning too, that looks at, the mayor, the commissioner started by talking about the mayor's goals, and our mayor has made some ambitious goals about growing our city. He's laid out a comprehensive approach for how we bring economic prosperity to the city and how we grow the population. And one of the strategies that he's asked us to look at is how we adopt our zoning code to make sure that we're providing those kinds of housing choices that are going to be needed if we're going to grow the city. And it's not just about growing the city, it's also about making our city more environmentally sustainable and equitable. The Common Council recently adopted a climate and equity plan that talked about the need to update zoning codes to allow for people to reduce amount of times we're relying on cars, and to ensure that our development patterns and our housing choices support people who want to get around by other modes of transit, whether it's transit, foot, or bicycle. There's also the question about how do we make sure that our housing choices are accessible and affordable to a wide range of individuals. And the city, under the leadership of Mayor Johnson, recently completed a pretty thoughtful and strategic cross-sector affordable housing plan. That plan came up with a variety of strategies that set forth pretty ambitious goals around reducing the disparity in Black-white homeownership in the city and providing deeply affordable housing so that everyone in Milwaukee has a high quality place to live. And one of those strategies that was recommended by that plan was to make sure that our planning and zoning is not a barrier. We want to make sure that as we implement all these ambitious strategies to create a wider mix of accessible housing choices, that we're not getting in our own way and we're not letting our regulations block the type of housing that people have expressed time and time again that they want to see. We've also done planning around how do we make sure that we're ensuring that there is significant development and near our transit corridors. We know that many people for years, and you've heard this reference a few times, we know that walkable urban neighborhoods rely on a close proximity of transit options and shopping opportunities and housing. And as we see investments in things like bus rapid transit and the HOP streetcar, we want to make sure that our zoning code supports those goals around allowing people to live close to transit so that they can better be connected to jobs and access walkable urban neighborhoods. Now, we talked about affordable housing, and we do want to acknowledge that if we're serious about achieving the city's affordable housing goals, zoning is just one piece of the puzzle. We know that changes to the zoning code on their own, we can't snap our fingers and solve all of Milwaukee's affordable housing goals, but that's why we're really excited about this fitting into the larger strategy. And you'll see on the next slide, we continue to work hand in hand with our partners at the Community Development Alliance to make sure that we're implementing a variety of strategies to meet Milwaukee's affordable housing needs. The zoning code updates and growing MK is one component of that, but we're also working aggressively with partners like Habitat for Humanity to build new affordable single-family homes, work with partners like Axe Housing to acquire homes to keep them out of the hands of predatory out-of-state landlords so they can be used for affordable housing, and support new owners in Milwaukee through our down payment assistance programs, as well as help existing homeowners preserve their housing and avoid displacement through programs like our Strong Homes Loan Program and Compliance Loan Program. So the zoning piece fits into that, as well as the goal of creating new affordable rental housing. We've been aggressive over the past few years about using city resources such as tax increment financing to create thousands of new units of affordable housing, including implementing anti-displacement preference policies and other anti-displacement programs as well. So that work will continue. We work with our partners at the CDA every day to do that, but we know that zoning is one piece of that puzzle. And we also know that we're thankfully, with a lot of the work that's been done in the past, our zoning code is supporting significant housing development. Over 22,000 new housing units have been built over the past 20 years, but we know that's still not keeping up with demand as we see increasing numbers of households in the city as well. So we know that we need to continue to keep up with that. And we also see from the trends that much of the recent development has been either large, very large multifamily developments or single family developments. And as you heard earlier, we know there's also a demand for some of those other styles that haven't been built as much, like townhomes and more middle scale housing. So we acknowledge that there are some challenges in our zoning code to developing those kinds of homes that people have said they want. Things like accessory dwelling units or cottage homes, as some people call them, or coach homes or townhomes. There's parts of the city that it's difficult to develop those because of the zoning code. And we want to use this process to get feedback from people on where in the city those types of styles are desired and should be, something that we're working aggressively to build. So one of the things we want to talk to residents and community members about through the next few months over this process is how do we achieve these goals? How do we make sure that we are working to achieve the goals that residents have for their own neighborhoods about how to, constructing walkable neighborhoods, making sure that we are executing on our goals for housing choice, allowing the styles of housing that are diverse and in demand to be built across the city, potentially the ones that result in lower housing costs for residents as well. It also involves exploring parking requirements to make sure that the parking requirements in our zoning code line up with the city's goals for housing affordability, transit access, and climate equity. And again, just ensuring that we also are enabling those kinds of home-based businesses that we want to see as economic development and small business incubating often starts in people's homes. And we know that that's something that, historically happened a lot more. And we want to make sure that our zoning code is well tailored to support those kind of small businesses before they launch into needing a full space. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Amy to talk about the process of how we're going to get there and how you fit into this both today and on an ongoing basis.
All right, thank you, Sam. So, all right, as we've mentioned a few times, we are looking to amend the citywide policy plan. For those not familiar, our comprehensive plan, which sets the direction and vision for land use and other things within the city and guides a lot of those decisions, is composed of our citywide policy plan and then 14 different comprehensive area plans along with amendments to each of those. So we are looking at a citywide project and we appreciate all of you being here tonight to start talking about it. So just an engagement timeline, and as we've mentioned, there'll be lots of opportunities to engage over the next few months. And this first portion, we really want to check in with the community. So there's been areas of the city where we've had more recent conversations about development and other factors, but there's also some areas that we, haven't been able to check in for a while. So there's been goals for housing that have been checked by, set up by numerous plans and initiatives, but we want to ask everybody, is there anything missing? How is Milwaukee going to choose to grow? And we really want to be able to, communicate how zoning is a piece of that puzzle. Then, based on the feedback from that part one, along with some analysis of our zoning code, we're going to bring forward some draft recommendations. And this will kind of come forward more in the fall period, but we'll continue, checking in and talking about how Milwaukee will choose to grow. And we'll bring that out for public feedback as well. And then we'll move forward based on all of that feedback with developing a draft plan, that amendment to our citywide comprehensive plan, and we'll bring that forward for public review as well. That will be brought forward to Common Council for adoption when it's ready. And all right, so how to engage? As we've mentioned, there's going to be quite a variety. This is the first citywide planning project we've done in a while, so we're trying a couple new things. We're going to be setting up office hours at different libraries across the city. So like one day a week, you can come and find us and we'll switch each library each week. That will be posted shortly in the next week or so, where we'll be over the next few months. And then we're setting up evening open houses. So on your screen, I've got the first 3 set up. We'll be have an open house at the Villard Library on July 10th, Mitchell Street Library on August 14th, and Washington Park Library on August 28th. And those will be open houses. This is also posted on the website. They'll be from 5:30 to 7. So you're welcome to stop by at your leisure during that time frame. We're working on scheduling booths and tables at events. So you'll find us at farmers markets, community festivals, setting up some outreach at senior centers, and there'll be a virtual lunch meeting during the process as well, so that people can tune in that way. For those of you familiar with some of our more recent planning projects, we've really been able to step up the online engagement. So we will have an interactive website. You will see a different version of Engage MKE shortly, and there will be a link sent out in the next couple of days. We're just launching that. It's a new look and it's pretty exciting. And we'll be getting up ways to engage over the next few weeks. And then also we'll be able to have some boards up at each library for you to stop by and kind of learn a little bit more about the project, how to engage, and offer some feedback about what you want to see in your neighborhood. And then, you can receive information through the email list, flyers, social media, and going to the website. I encourage you, if you're not signed up for the email list yet, to go to milwaukee.gov/growingmke and sign up for that email list to make sure you are notified when there are opportunities to engage or meetings planned and that sort of thing.